There it is, the infamous Warriors of Light podcast, huh?
Warriors of Light here again for another episode. My lighting is great today.
Sweet.
My giant forehead just taking up the screen. I
You look pretty. Don't worry.
didn't do my makeup today.
Darn,
So
dude. Get your shit together.
I know I could have put like eyeliner on. Could have looked like a real terrorist, you know.
Yeah, that
But
would have been good.
what's funny is when I was a kid, I don't know why I did this, but I actually dressed up, I guess, as a Persian,
Oh,
and I was young enough to where I didn't have facial hair, really.
uh-huh.
But I like painted a beard onto myself, and I look like I just got off the boat.
That's hilarious.
But anyway, what's going on, Brian? How you doing, buddy? I'm
Great.
just over here being a goober with my light.
Nah, I'm doing good. Just, I told you, it's about continued growth, continued interesting journey just because of the growth. The growth is great. You get more and more realizations and awakenings, and you start to become who you really are. Like I told you, we were talking about that off camera. It's just becoming our most authentic version, which is actually takes a lot of going inside and deconstructing all the shit you were handed and figuring out like, oh, I'm not all these things I was told I was supposed to be. I'm actually myself now. I'm actually figuring out what makes me happy, truly happy, what lights me up, what how I want to live life. And so it's been a really interesting, probably last couple of months.
Yeah, man, we were talking about true freedom, and actually, I just thought of like myself, like growing up. I remember being like really self conscious and stuff, and then I hit a certain age where I just stopped caring.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's multiple facets to having absolute freedom. Like number one is you have to learn not to care what other people think,
100%. No one's
and
opinion but yours matters.
then like you said, you kind of like it's kind of a weird system that we all seem to be in, is that we're brought up to be programmed in a certain way, and then we have to deconstruct all of those things because you find out through experiences that not everything you've been told is always the truth
Exactly.
or your truth. So you have to like navigate, you have to like refine yourself in a way. I don't know.
Yeah. And you have to deconstruct the ego that you were handed and then reconstruct who you actually really are. Not even reconstruct, but like just go deep and figure out from the soul level, who are you? You know, what makes you, it's like we talked about off camera. You know, I always say, okay, so how do you want to live your life? What do you really want to do in this life? If that means you don't follow a system and you don't get married and have two kids and buy a house and do all the stuff that people say, but you're not out there hurting anybody, do what you want to do, right? And guess what? You're going to have family, friends, society, whoever come against you because you're being different. But the only people that actually live a full life and make a difference are the ones that live very different because they follow what their soul tells them, not what anybody else tells them. They're not worried about people's approval. And that's the place that I'm at, is that I'm thankfully at a place where I'm no longer worried about people's approval.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you're constantly worried about other people's approval, you're never gonna be happy or fulfilled,
Exactly.
because because again, like we've talked about before, you're seeking outside validation
Yes.
where all of it should come from within. So if you're doing something that you're on a path where you're doing it because someone else told you that's the only way to success, then you're never going to be happy because or you're living someone else's dream.
Absolutely. Well, look at most of our culture now, right? Hustle and grind, not most of it, but a lot of our culture. Hustle and grind, push and do this and do that. And people achieve that thing that I want to be rich. They become rich and they're like, I'm still not happy. I want this relationship. They get it, they're still not happy. I want to buy this home. They get it, they're still not happy because they're not actually addressing what's inside. They're following, like you just said, everybody else's quote unquote dream. It's not even everybody else's dream. It's the dream people were handed. right?
Yeah,
And so,
something you've been programmed to believe, oh, this is how life should be lived.
yeah, I mean, for me, I see a vision of traveling the world, meeting people all over the world, serving everywhere I go, but also having fun, learning wisdom and stories and sharing my own. And that to me is a beautiful life. I don't have a life of like, I just want to live in this one house on this one street with, whatever. Like, I just don't see that. That's not a true fulfillment to me. But a lot of people will tell you, like, what about kids? What about, hey, I'll still take care of my kids, but I'm going to go and do the life that I want to do.
Screw them kids. No, just kidding.
No.
No. See, mine's a little different. Like, I want to travel, but I also kind of just want to be in the middle of nowhere, like in the mountains or something, and left alone. That's kind of what I've always wanted.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
away, because I feel like when you live too close to society, then you're like, we're supposed to help people, but at the same time, you're not going to be able to help every single person.
No, not at
Or
all.
or or groups of humans tend to want to have control over things. So, then you're battling against those things, and then you're like, okay, I just want peace,
Yeah.
But that comes with different experiences too, because if you pray for peace, you have to prepare for war.
Well, the whole thing is too is, I think at the end of the day, everybody just wants peace, but peace also comes from within, right? You get to a state where you master yourself and you don't react to anyone or anything outside of you, which I'm still not there, but I'm trying. And then you end up living in a place of peace because nothing outside of you ever rocks you. So, which in turn, you're always going to be calm inside too. So you just get to float through life very peacefully, um, living each day in the present and very happy. But most people, they're living in the future, living in the past, so that aspect of peace to them never comes.
Well, yeah, I think that also kind of aligns with what I told you the other day about self mastery. And I've kind of gone down this path of learning philosophical truths from Miyamoto Musashi about how like I have the Book of Five Rings, and I just picked up the Dakota, which is like 21 principles to live by, and there's just one sentence phrases that he wrote right like a little bit right before he died. And like I told you the other day, like if you simplify your life, it'll be a lot easier. Like, but again, it comes from within. Like, one of the principles is to accept the world just as it is. So when I talk about like, oh, I want to live in the middle of nowhere and be away from everyone, it's like, but at the same time, you have to also, it's in a way you kind of have to like face reality. You can manifest what you want and build what you want, but at the same time, you have to accept where you are now. You know, does that make
Exactly.
sense?
That's what it is. It's being happy where you are. So you put out to the universe what you want, but then you tell the universe, I'm happy when that comes and I'm happy right now. Right? You're happy with or without it. Which in turn goes back to non-attachment. So then you're living in peace, right? Because you're not attached to an outcome. You're not worried about it. Again, you and I talked about this yesterday. It's like even in a relationship, right? When you have a partner who doesn't fully understand that concept, and when you tell them you're detached, they think that means you're indifferent and you don't care, which is a total difference. And I tell it's like I tell people, I'm like, you being detached just means you're not worried about what the outcome is going to be of that situation. So you're in a relationship, you're not sitting there living every day wondering, is this relationship going to last? You're just living. And then if it doesn't last, you're okay with it. If it does last for a season of a lifetime, then there you go.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good place to go into is attachments because man, we can talk about that for 4 hours
Yeah,
because well, again, that kind of ties back to the ego and like survival and like we create these we put our own power into outside things instead of cultivating the power within us. So then we rely on outside things to be like, okay, I'm good.
yeah,
Where in reality, the reason why, like it says in a lot of ancient philosophical and spiritual leaders are like don't have any attachments because we come into this world with no attachments and
Exactly.
we leave this world with no attachments. Like, you know?
Isn't it funny how when we come in and we go out, it's like we know how to live. We know what actual living is. But when we're in the middle of the journey, most people can't figure that out.
I think it's funny. I kind of think I want to say ironic, but it's not, like, that's not the right word. But it's like when you're a baby, people have to take care of you, and then when you become old, it's like you go right back to being a baby again almost. It's like a full circle. Like you don't, like, my grandfather's in his 90s. He doesn't give a crap about really anything except for his family, Like, he's like, like, when we talk about attachments, he's like, I'm ready, I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
But I think there's also a liberation in, like, if you can learn to liberate yourself from the attachments of what that's shoved in our face every day, you'll have a much better life.
absolutely.
Like, we're just throwing all these things. Oh, you need this new iPhone or whatever, or more money and blah blah blah. It's like, why? You can't
Yeah,
take it with you.
yeah,
It's just gonna sit somewhere and collect dust. You know.
absolutely. Yeah, but
I think we place value in the wrong things.
well, that's the illusion that we're sold, right? Is focus on all the externals. They're going to make you happy. And then you have people, which you have these countless stories of billionaires that they've had all the money, all the homes, all the people that they would want, and they're still unfulfilled. But that's not what it's about. The journey's within. The journey is finding the peace inside. The journey is seeing the beauty in everything, right where you are every moment. And then you get to live a life of freedom, right? But most people don't get to that place because we're constantly shoved. Like you said, it's shoved in our faces. Get more, do more, be more. You don't have to do any of that.
Yeah, because I think there's something to be said, like, especially this day and age, like, and I know we're on YouTube, but like with social media and technology, you know, people who tend to post the most beautiful things have the most miserable lives.
Yeah.
Not
Yep.
everyone, not
Not
everyone, but there's a lot. And I think it has to do with the fact that, in a way, it's a mask because you're showing one side of yourself to the world. When never before in human history have we ever had these devices where we could just share anything at any time. And I think it creates a different type of loneliness, but I think it also creates this void that people try to fill, and then they get lost and they don't even know what's missing.
yeah.
And I think it's because it's all externalized. So it's like now you're showing the world your life with the dinner you made Friday night or something, Here's my
Yeah.
Instagram post. And it's
Yeah.
like, but there's no actual meaning in it. Like, you're
Well,
just
no,
like, I don't know. Am I crazy?
no. Well, think about it. I mean, social media is all about getting validation, right? How many likes did I get?
Yeah.
It's just for that temporary dopamine hit. Like, oh, yay, look, 100 people like my picture. Well, most of those people really didn't care. They just quickly hit the thumbs up and kept moving with their life and didn't think about it twice, you know? But yet people are finding false validation in all of that. I was off
That's why.
social media. I was off social media for more than 6 months, and it was a great break. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done that before too. I've taken a long break,
Yep.
and it's nice. It's nice to not be. Well, I don't. We're not supposed to be connected to everyone all the time. Like, I feel like maybe that's why it's hard for people. Again, it's another distraction. Like, it's hard for people to do inner work where, oh, I have this question, let me Google it or whatever. And it's like, just sit with yourself and be silent
Yeah.
and find your truth within.
You'll receive all the answers.
Yeah. You don't need a screen when God is like, hey, I'm right here,
Yeah.
everywhere, all the time.
Yeah. I'm talking to you all the time through
Or
everything.
Work on yourself. Don't worry about what other people are doing.
Exactly.
But that's why we created this in the first place. And it's ironic that we're talking about it on YouTube and, and people are
Yeah.
going to be watching it like I'm walking on the screen right now. But
Well, we are, but we're hopefully using it for, the highest good of everyone.
well, that's what just like with anything, I think most things are created to be good, but just like anything, it can be overused.
Of course.
Just like food, you can eat an apple, but if you eat like 100 apples, you're gonna get sick. So, but I
Yeah.
think it
Well,
all just ties into, I don't know, like it's like everyone's searching for something, but it's all within ourselves.
yeah. Yep. That's what it is. But we're told to seek outside of us.
Yeah,
And that's what we do until we figure out that the outside will never fulfill the inside.
like there's oh, Al, since we're on the subject, there's a quote, and it might be a little egotistical depending on how you how you interpret it. And uh, I guess it could be argued that Richard the Lionheart was maybe a controversial figure. I don't know, depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
But there's a quote, and apparently he said, "I am born of a rank that recognizes no superior but God." And in one sense, when I hear that, I'm like, that's a little egotistical. But at the same time, I'm like, what I draw from it is you answer to no one but God, and that's not, if you look at it from a non-ego standpoint, who do you need validation from but yourself,
Well, exactly.
or from your creator?
And you're a part of your creator. So if you
Yeah,
approve of yourself, you're approving of your creator's approving of you, right? I mean, that's the bottom line.
yeah,
That's why it's, like, do you like yourself? Yeah. Okay. That's all that matters. But I think what I realized though is most people will say they like themselves. But if they actually sit with themselves, which pertains to all of them, every aspect, their shadow side as well, because we all have one, that's when people will start to feel shameful and guilt and not understand that you have to embrace all of you, even your neurotic fucking goofy things about yourself. You got to be like, well, that's a part of who I am. Of course there are things you can change, but if it's a part of you and it's just goofy and you're not harming anybody, then it's a part of you. It is what it is. Embrace it.
yeah. Because I think we just live in a time where everything is instant access, everything is fast, everything is all over the place, and then it's easy to get sucked in and not ever give yourself time to just take a step back and relax and be like, what is happening?
Yeah.
It's like we're all it's like most people are on autopilot and they don't even realize it.
Most people are on autopilot. They're
It's
literally
like
living the same day every day, like Groundhog's Day.
yeah, that's what I feel like sometimes when I'm
Well,
like, oh, I gotta go.
see, and when I see, or if I see that I might be slightly getting in that pattern, like I will do something in the day to shift shit up. It's a like today, it's a random fucking Tuesday. I'm gonna go have some fun. And I'm gonna go do something, whatever. And then that just kind of breaks that monotony, and you realize you don't have to live in the same fucking pattern all the time.
Yeah, I've started to find that. I found like when I'm doing something, or like I like to play video games or whatever because I'm a nerd, and I also work out and stuff. Like lately, I've been finding different ways to do things. Like it doesn't even you don't have to do anything crazy. You changing your routine doesn't have to be hard. You can just try a different workout, try a different move,
Yeah.
or maybe you read something and you read a different part of it, or maybe you get a different message from the same thing you already read. Like you have to expand the problem is that a lot of people live on autopilot, like you said, like Groundhog Day. So what does that mean? That means that you're not aware. But when you could still do the same things that you love to do, but if you expand your awareness around your life, you'll start to find things that you never saw before. It's been right there the whole time. That's what I've experienced, at least.
Definitely. Well, that's what I've experienced, and I've always heard, right, is to step into your,
Or like when you
get out of
watch
your comfort. No, I was saying just get out of your comfort zone and step into your discomforts, right?
getting out of your comfort zone means you're. Oh yeah, I think there's a little lag.
There is a lag. On my there's a lag.
Oh, but you see, yeah, man, that's the thing is growth is supposed to be uncomfortable. Is when you start to become comfortable, that's when you need to change it up because it's like, okay, now you're going to become stagnant, and then you're just going to become a sloth and do the same thing you do every day, and you're going to hate your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I say my vision of how I want to live life going forward is just, be able to travel where I want to travel, do what I want to do, meet people all over the world, serve wherever I'm called to serve, and have fun doing all of it, because I don't see myself living a stagnant life. I never have. That's why I would get places, man, and do things and be in, professions or whatever, and just be like, okay, I'm tired of this. Because I just knew it wasn't, I just don't, for me personally, things don't feel like, okay, I can stay in this one thing and do this for the next 30 years and be happy. I mean, I believe if I'm out there speaking, coaching, and inspiring people, I could do that for 100 years. But like just working a job, doing the same monotonous job over and over and over, I just couldn't imagine. Couldn't imagine.
Yeah, man, that's what it's like in my profession right now. And I'm like, I don't want to end up like one of you people that works for 30 years until you're 70 and like you're still working the same thing you've been doing the whole time and you never actually like did anything but sit at a desk.
Yeah. And then you retire and die a week later.
Yeah. Yeah, no thank you.
You're like, I waited all those years to get that pension. Shit. I don't even.
But you see that's what I'm talking about. But that's what but you just reminded me, well, you're supposed to live serving your actual purpose that you were put here for.
Absolutely.
So like when you say something like, "Oh, if I could help people and talk to people and mentor people spiritually every day, then I could do that for 100 years." Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We
And
can
we
do that.
can do that. That's why we started this podcast in the first
Well,
place.
that's what I mean, and that's actually what I was meaning is, like, I can do that, and that's what I'm going toward. Like, like we've talked about, I currently work in a school, but this is the only school year I'm doing, and I'm out, and I'm going into some other projects and things with the city that I currently live in, with which is about like mental, physical, and spiritual health, and I'm going to be putting on classes and things, but it's under my own. I'm a contractor, so I get to do things under my own schedule, my own everything, right? And so I'm like, great, that's going to be perfect because that's what I love to do. Is if I want to put on a regular class or group or whatever, I want to do it on my own time, in my own way, without people telling me, well, these are the parameters you got to stay within. You got to do this and you got to do that. It's like, no, let me just go help people the way it comes natural to me and watch how many people will be impacted. But most places have spent fucking decades creating books of rules about, what shoes not to wear. It's like, dude, at the end of the fucking day, what are you doing to inspire or impact anybody? Nothing.
But no, that's awesome. That's actually, when you because I've been in schools too, like talking to kids about health and fitness and like I tried to sprinkle in a little bit of spiritual stuff in there or motivational mindset kind of stuff. But it's like when you like since you brought it up because that's what you do and that's what you're going to be doing is like think about what we're talking about. Think about schools. There's a reason why kids fucking hate school, man. They go to school.
It's an
They do the
institution.
same thing every day. It's an institution that tells you this is what you're supposed to do. This is what you need to learn. And then when they have kids who aren't interested in something they learn, oh, you must have ADHD, put them on medication.
Yep. So in other words, well, we all are right in this like prison. So it's like the kids are in a prison when they're in school. You got to be here for 6 hours a day. You got to do the shit we tell you, and then you can go. You know what I mean? That's like literally.
Well, it's like George Carlin. It's kind of like what George Carlin said. He said they want you smart enough to work the machines, but dumb enough to not ask questions.
Exactly. So that you don't understand the power you have within, so that you can actually live and like you can create and live the life you want.
And like we talked about before off cameras, the ones who break the mold are the ones who end up making the biggest difference.
Absolutely.
The ones who don't follow
those are the people that are still talking
the rules, so to speak.
The status quo, man. The status quo, right? That's why I say I literally, not to say I've never done it, but I've always, everywhere I've gone, I push the boundaries as much as possible. Not to be an ass, it just naturally comes out of me because I'm questioning everything.
Well, it even says, even in Christianity, it says nothing is impossible to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a spiritual truth. I think that's like a universal spiritual truth, is that there's nothing that's impossible to you. You just have to be willing to like let go of all of these limitations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I've said for so many years, the only place that our limitations live are within our head.
If you can conquer the mind, you know, they say he who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's just like Wayne Dyer said, you know, if you look at a tree and when it blows in the wind, don't be rigid, be flexible.
Yeah, he always used the analogy of a palm tree, like in a tropical storm. He said, you know, they can bend all the way over without breaking because they can bend with change, right? That's what we have to be able to do as humans, is consistently bend with change. And the unfortunate thing is with the ego, most people are afraid of change. Change seems like a threat.
Yeah, no, that's actually a very good point. And it's interesting that even if something is a change and it's not inherently bad, it's still in maybe even in your subconscious mind, you're like, oh, threat. Or in your ego, an alarm goes off and you're like, oh, we're not used to this. This is not comfortable.
That's what it is. It's the ego saying like, oh, it's time to help you survive again, when you actually don't even need to survive. You're going to be okay. That's why I'm such a proponent of constantly telling people, learn how to decipher the two, when it's the ego talking, soul talking. You know, when you start to learn to listen to the soul talking, you know the difference, and you can hear the ego trying to tell you how to worry about everything, and then you can hear the soul saying you're going to be fine, keep going.
Well, here's an interesting actually, I have an interesting way to put that, because I deal with this on a daily basis. So let's Google, how many thoughts does the human mind have a day?
Like roughly 65,000. Roughly. That's their estimate.
Dang, you're close, dude. You're close. I got 60,000 on Google. Look at that.
Yeah, see.
So let's since we're on the subject, let's talk about that. Let's put it in an example. So on average, one person has up to 60,000 thoughts a day, right?
Yeah.
So now the challenge is, how do you have to discern how much of that is actually your thoughts, or how much of it is your ego,
Fear.
how much of it is the doubter in you, or is it actually coming from your soul?
Exactly. Which, honestly, our soul's always speaking to us, but so is the monkey mind if we don't control it.
Because actually, um, and I've heard this before, but they're actually, I saw something, I don't know what the source is or how valid it is, like scientifically, quote unquote, whatever. But I think they actually found scientific evidence that consciousness is not from the mind. It's from something else,
Yeah, makes
aka the
sense.
spirit.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because there's been a lot of, like, we've talked about this before, where there's been cases of people who have near death experiences and they leave their body and they see everything happening and they
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
everything, and the
of
doctors are
course.
like baffled because their brain was dead. It's like, how did you remember anything if your brain was dead?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's that book. I always go back. It's an older book, but "Dying to Be Me" by Anita Moorjani. That's a book that she tells her near death experience, and like just recounts everything that happened. She was above her body watching the doctors talk, like hearing them talk, watching them do the procedures they were doing, trying to save her. And then so when she came back, she was gone for, I forget how long they say, like in the human world. She came back and literally told each doctor, "Well, you said this, and you said that I wouldn't make it, and you said give up." And they were freaking out. They were like, "What in the hell?" But it's because our soul is our actual consciousness. That's who we actually are. We're not all these fears and traumas and crap that we've carried around, man. We're not that. We're actually a peaceful, loving soul in the center, like, or not in the center, even so much just who we actually are is that soul.
You know what's interesting about that is, I think it was in Canada. Well, since we're talking about near-death experiences and stuff, they've actually found evidence that when a human dies, they've registered a type of light that leaves the body. Like there's a glow,
Ooh, that's
or
interesting.
like
It's like
they're basically
basically like,
basically now science is finding proof that we are spirits.
oh yeah, science and spirituality have come together, and they realize that it's all one.
Yeah, it's a little concerning what they try to do with it. I guess what kind of experiments they try. Like, oh, let's see if we can put this person's consciousness in this other person.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, isn't that always the problem with humans? It's like, oh, we can do that. We understand that. Let's try something else now.
Yeah, like we always try. You know, you've seen Jurassic Park, right?
Yeah.
So did you hear about the dire wolves that they bioengineered?
No.
Dude, so okay. So well, now we're jumping to the topic of, should mankind play God? The answer is no.
Yeah.
However,
No.
so this group of scientists, they took ancient DNA from a dire wolf, which are like these massive prehistoric kind of wolves, like the wolf in Game of Thrones is what people compare it to, dire wolves. And
Uh
they
huh.
took gray wolf DNA and they combined them together and they created a modern version of dire wolves,
Oh, that's great.
which is which is why I asked you if you saw Jurassic Park, because they talk about that in Jurassic Park. Where like one of the quotes is, "Your scientists were so busy trying to figure out if they could that they never stopped to think if they should."
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
when we kind of break through those barriers of like, should we do this? Does anyone ever stop to think like, is this a good idea? Like they're trying to bring back mammoths and all this stuff, and I don't know, talking about
I've heard.
putting the consciousness from someone into someone else. It's like, we do this stuff, man. What are we doing?
Yeah, I've heard of that, and I was like, yeah, it's crazy. It's like you said in Jurassic Park too, right? They were talking about extracting the DNA of a dinosaur and like recreating dinosaurs. I'm like, yeah, probably not probably not the best idea.
That's why like that's why like being human is such a weird thing. It's like because we could all just live very simple lives, but and a lot of the times we make our own messes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, dude, 100%. That I say that all the time. Like, do you know how simple life actually can be? But we create these tangled webs because we, instead of actually going with the flow of life, with the flow of the universe, we want to enhance it or change it or whatever, control it. And then we end up in these giant messes and we're wondering why we're where we're at because we weren't supposed to do any of that anyway.
Yeah, and then they're using that, and it's like when you think about spirituality and God and stuff like that, you're like, don't you ever stop to think that maybe all these things are meant to happen, whether or not you try to recreate it or not?
Exactly. Well, it's just like all of the deepest spiritual sages speak. They all say life is perfect. It's all perfect, right? Everything is happening just the way it's supposed to. But then comes the ego and says, I'm going to change it. I'm going to save it, right? Like that's the other thing. I'm going to save the world. Well, why don't you change yourself? Or rather than save, I'm going to change the world. Why don't you change yourself first?
Well, that's what all the spiritual sages say is to, if you want to help the world, you must help yourself first.
Yeah. It's just like the analogy of being
That's,
on air and putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. If you don't help you first, how are you going to help anybody else? But you have most people running around trying to change everybody else and completely ignoring all their own bullshit. All you got to do is focus on yourself.
yeah, man. All I know is that we're gonna have the apocalypse. There's gonna be dire wolves and tigers running around with mammoths.
Sweet. That's gonna be awesome.
It's like, dude, can we not? But no, it starts. Everything that happens in life starts from within.
Yeah, everything.
That's the whole concept of manifesting.
Exactly.
You manifest and
Yep.
you
That's
project
how we
what's
create.
within your.
Yeah. Everything starts with a thought, right? So it's like I tell people, I mean, why not think why not think good thoughts? Why not think the stuff you want to think and you want to create? And why not get quiet enough each day to actually hear our creator talk to us and say, hey, this is what I actually want you to do?
Yeah, actually, that whole 60,000 thoughts a day. That's probably the best piece of advice you could have said, Brian, is learn to quiet your own mind.
Yeah.
That's where meditation and stuff comes in because you can, especially when you have emotions, like high emotions that are running, and then you have even more thoughts and you're like spiraling and you're like, just take a deep breath. Or like I was teaching my son how to meditate the other night because he was upset and it actually helped him. And I told him, I was like, just visualize either like the ocean or something or just nothing. Just visualize like a blank screen. Because for me, that helps me quiet my mind is like visualizing nothing.
Yeah.
Because it's like
See,
in a way we never really let our minds rest.
no, you're right. Yeah, for me, I tend to, when I meditate, I start with a visualization of whatever I want to create in life, I guess, and put it out there, and then I just let it go quiet. But like you said, see, the thing is with meditation over time, what I have found anyway, is I can go through the day and quiet my mind in a moment of obviously just being awake, sitting and just sitting, right? I'm sitting and going through my day, and I can not have any negative thoughts, but just hear my mind even just wanting to have positive thoughts. But I just give it a chance to not have anything. So I kind of go to a state of just like even if thoughts are happening, they're subconscious because I don't hear them, I don't see them. I'm just just there, very present, which is extremely peaceful.
You know what else helps is I like to do it. I like to meditate, or I don't really I close my eyes, but I don't keep them open and like sit down and stuff like that. I just kind of like, what I like to do is listen to the sounds of nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like one of my favorite things to do is to stand. I'll stand outside and I'll just like, there might be a lawnmower in the background or something, and I'll just focus on the sound of the birds.
Yeah.
And it's like, but then that goes back to like, we're supposed to be in tune with nature, with the creation, like this place that God gave us to live.
Yeah.
You
Because
know?
we're a part of it. We've just separated ourselves through an illusion. Through an illusion, we've separated ourselves to believe that we're not all one. We're all part of the same thing. We're all part of the same creation.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it goes back to how consciousness doesn't necessarily come from the brain. And when you think
Yeah.
about it that way, and then you go out and meditate, and then you listen to the creation that we're living in, it's like you connect to it again.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Like even plants, or even like trees. Um, I've done something before where I'll go up to you know, whatever, I don't care what people think, but I'll go up to a tree and I'll put my hand on it and just kind of like close my eyes and just kind of feel the energy or whatever. It's like we're supposed to be connected to all these things. We're not supposed to be sitting in a box all day looking at screens. We're supposed to be out in the sun. Everything is here for our benefit, and we deny it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I get outside every day, man. Like being at that school, I get my student. I'm like, we're going outside and we're going to spend a lot of the day out there. Whether we're out walking around, we're sitting out at a table outside, we're out in the football field, we're doing something to where it's being outside in the sunshine, out in nature where we belong, not in a classroom inside four walls with artificial light. Like, no, thank you.
That's what I have to do. I have to do that at work. I'm like, I'm going out to my truck. I'm going to sit outside
Yeah.
for my short lunch break.
Yeah.
Get away from the computer, get away from the office, get away from humans,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and just chill out. And
Absolutely.
like, I feel like we've kind of been pushed that ways to do it less as
Yeah.
a whole.
Because
So
we've created
I
all
don't
these
know.
systems to sit and make money, instead of actually doing what's going to bring you true happiness. There's nothing wrong with money if you receive it, doing what you love doing. But if you're enslaved chasing this imaginary currency, which that's why it's called currency, it's an energy, um, and you're enslaved in doing something you don't want to do for 8 hours a day. Think how much time people are giving up every day to do something that they actually don't really want to do. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, I know. Oh,
All
I
this
know.
time you could be doing
I live it.
absolutely love. Yeah, absolutely. All the time you're giving that you could actually be using to do something you love and be that you're passionate about. And at the end of the day, if you trust and you have actual faith, our creator is going to give us everything we need anyway and more.
Well, I think that's where that true freedom comes into play. Is that in a way we don't allow ourselves to even think that way.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
and I think a lot of ways we sabotage ourselves,
Absolutely.
because because then the ego chimes in. You're like, oh, survival mode, money, blah 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 blah.
Exactly. What you just said, survival mode. You go back into survival mode. You're not supposed to be in that very often. Fight or flight, man, and people are living in fight or flight for extended periods of time, which is why the body breaks down so much faster.
So other than what we've talked about before we close this episode out, what are some things people can work into their daily routine where maybe they can, maybe I don't like to use daily routine because you're supposed to be able to flow, but people respond good to structure, I guess. But what are some things other than what we talked about that people can start to do to like kind of free their minds?
Well, I mean, I will reiterate meditation. The other thing is asking yourself each day, or asking the question to the universe: Who am I, and why am I here? Who's my most authentic self? Show me these things, and then allow yourself to go through your day and feel the things that are revealed to you, and start taking steps toward those things that are revealed to you. Whatever it is you're truly passionate about, whatever it is that actually lights you up, start taking steps to do those things. Whatever you're truly inspired to be doing, take a step. And also, like you said, you can make life simple. Reconstruct your life. If you've built a life with a ton of debt and a ton of things you don't need, downsize your life. Reconstruct your life to allow you more freedom. Because eventually, even these money systems are all going to break down. So everybody's so focused on that. You will get what you need when you need it, how you need it, in unexpected ways if you just trust and you live and follow the flow of life. So I tell people, like each day, wake up, ask those questions, and then learn to live in the present moment. So you slow down, you're living here, you're living now. And then you'll start to receive signs, synchronicities that will show you, hey, this is actually what you really want to be doing every day. If it's going to fly kites, go fly kites. Maybe you'll give flying kite classes. I don't know. You'll construct kites and sell them. I mean, do whatever it is you love, and you'll never regret a day in your life. And again, that's going to go against a lot of the status quo. So you're going to get a lot of ridicule, a lot of judgment, but it doesn't matter. No one else's opinion matters anyway.
Yeah, actually, talking about judgment, it's interesting. I heard this quote where it said, I judged others, but the scales were broken in my own hands.
Yeah.
Meaning that we are all flawed in our own ways, so we don't have a place to judge anyone at all, ever.
Ever. Which by all means, I'm still working on that, but I do my very best to catch myself any moment I find myself.
Isn't it hard, dude? Isn't it hard? You're just like, it's like some days I'm just thinking like, look at this idiot. And I'm like, oh wait, I'm also an idiot.
Yeah. Yep. When my mind goes to that, almost every time I'll catch my mind say something about somebody, and I'm like, oh shit, you have your own stuff. Stop talking shit. And then it just reminds me I have no place to judge people.
That's why I like to use that example of like what I just said. Because if you like, a lot of people approach these things and they try to be super serious, like be serious about it, but also have fun. Like when if you're trying to practice, like even in I can't talk. Miyamoto Musashi talked about basically a minimalist life. Like he had very little possessions ever at all.
Yeah.
And like if you're trying to like when you're trying to work on yourself, a lot of our worst critics are ourselves. I can attest to that 100%. I'm my own worst critic. So be like my wife. Actually, my wife always says, give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Grace doesn't just come from God; it comes from you also. Like, give yourself a break a little bit. Like, don't take it so seriously. Be able to joke about these things. Like, make
I'm glad,
yourself
I'm glad,
laugh.
but I'm glad you said that, because I would say it's probably a really good thing to kind of end on, as well is the fact of not taking this life too serious. Every spiritual sage says that's like one of the main rules, is don't take this life that serious. It's really not that serious. You can literally make everything you do fun. Even if it doesn't work out the way you thought it was going to, that's okay. I learned something from it. Cool. Keep going.
That's beautiful. That's a perfect message to end it, I think.
For sure. Absolutely.
Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next one.